So welcome to this Holding Space for Self and Others webinar. We have 90 minutes together today. My name is Jackie Short. I'm the Clinical Director of Sydney Centre for Creative Change, a centre that provides you at the moment online training in creative therapies. To let you know, we have a chat box as well, which you can see, and I know many of you would have already used. In that chat box, I ask you to briefly introduce yourself, say hello to people. It might be morning or afternoon where you're coming in from, and say one thing that you're looking forward to about this webinar today. I know some of you have attended many of ours. This is the 7th one that we're running, and very excited to do that today. And we've got a range of things that we're doing today, but mostly it's going to be hearing that. So could I get you in the chat box to say what it is that you're most looking forward to, or something that you want out of your time with us today? And as you're typing that in, just to let you know that is being recorded and an edited version will be available on the website like all of the other ones that we've had. And if in the breakout rooms you do happen to accidentally fall out of connection, you can just log in again with the connection details that you've already been given. You can also see as many of our lovely faces as possible if you toggle between speaker and gallery view on the top right hand side of your screen there. You can see as many people as possible. And we also have Aidan Ellie, who's our lovely admin assistant, and he's there to support us with any tech problems that you might be having. So if you're having a problem getting in, or with sound, or with any of the visibility, you can email or phone him on the contact details that you have for him. So we've got some lovely chat coming in here. Let me read some of these out. Simone is open to learning new skills. Thanks for having me. Lovely to have you here, Simone. Hello. This is from Darwin, looking forward to learning practical tips, working with people with sensory processing issues. Hi, Tash. Hilary, good morning. Clinical psychotherapist working in both private practice and as a school counsellor at a special needs school. I'm an alt play provider. Really pleased to hear Dr. Grant again today. Always keen to discuss sensory processing and how you can support your kids better. Thanks, Hilary. Welcome. So some of you have done Dr. Grant's training in Australia or elsewhere, and I'm sure he'll tell us a little bit about that today as well. Leanne's from Wollongong, looking forward to learning more strategies, growing skills. Cheryl from Port Macquarie, looking for some new ideas. Lots of questions and lots of thoughts in there. Tien's from Washington State, looking to learning more about sensory processing disorder. Lovely. Well, welcome everybody today. It's great to have you all here, and great that you know where that chat box is too, so you can ask questions of Dr. Grant later on. So let me share a little bit about what the plan is for this morning that we have. Sorry, got ahead of myself. It's not the 7th, it's just Holding Space webinar. It's only 6 weeks we've been in lockdown, feels like 7. Today, we're mostly going to be focusing on supporting children with sensory processing issues. And our special guest, Robert Grant, is going to be talking about this. I'm also going to be presenting a little bit later on about how we can manage wellbeing and fight the urge sometimes to neglect our own needs in others. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to do some connecting in. We'll have 2 opportunities in small breakout rooms where you can meet and connect with others from around the place, wherever we're coming from today. And we've also got some special prize in our competition at the end. So stay on board, because you could well be a winner today. I'd like to now welcome Dr. Robert Jason Grant. Many of you would know Dr. Grant. He's the creator of Alt Play Therapy, which is autism treatment using not just play therapy, but also youth therapy and relationship development approaches. He owns and operates the Robert Jason Grant Alt Play Therapy, specialising in play therapy techniques with children, adolescents, adults and families, and also specialises in autism disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders and developmental disease in Missouri in the US. We were lucky enough to host you, Robert, last year in Sydney, and this is what Sydney looked like last year before we were in lockdown. It was a fresh morning, like it is today here in Sydney. There were people out and about. So we're in a different situation now. And Rob, welcome from Missouri. It's really, really lovely to have you here with us again today.
Thank you, Jackie. I'm glad that I could Zoom in with you all, right? It would be so much more
Excellent.
fun
It
to
is.
be there in person, but that's
It
okay.
would. It would. We could have some other beach walks and any experiences. It would be lovely. And we hope to host you again when we all get out of this lockdown and our planes fly across the world again. You were
Yes.
saying a little bit earlier that in Missouri, you're only a day away from transiting out of lockdown.
Um, yes, it's kind of controversial because there is a push for reopening the economy, but then there's also a push for not reopening the economy. So it's very conflictual at the moment. But tomorrow, they are moving forward with reopening a lot of non-essential businesses. And so we're going to see what happens because we're still getting cases. We're still getting new cases. We're still having deaths, but our state governments, our federal governments are very much pushing for the economy getting back on track. And that's, I think, kind of what's driving the reopening. So, yeah, it's been weird all over the world, right? Luckily, we have this thing that we're doing right now, which is called technology, because that has helped so many mental health therapists continue to engage with their clients, so many clients be able to continue to get services. It's kind of nice. I mean, really something to be thankful for because certainly when I started as a play therapist, there was no technology like this. And if had this happened, there would just be no seeing any clients at all for the last 6 weeks. Um, so I am happy and thankful for this. And pretty much when things started to get serious, probably about 6 or 7 weeks ago for us too, um, the clinic primarily switched to telehealth services. So I've been seeing most of my clients through a program I use called Ring Central, but it's just similar to Zoom. And I sometimes am at home seeing clients like this. I'm at home right now. Or I might go into the office and see clients there through telehealth. The internet is a little more stable in the office than at the home. So sometimes I go into the office. Most of the therapists in my clinic switched. For a couple of weeks, it was very chaotic because I had actually had previous telehealth experience. I started with my first telebehavioral health client 10 years ago, and our sessions were through a phone. And ever since that time, I have maintained probably 2 to 3 on average clients on my caseload at any given time that were telehealth clients, telebehavioral health. But when COVID-19 happened, it was like suddenly in one weekend switching like 25 clients to telebehavioral health, and then trying to help all my therapists in my clinic who had no experience with telehealth get that experience and get all their clients switched. It was crazy. I never want to relive those 2 weeks again. It's much more stable now. We've gotten into a routine somewhat, and so that feels a lot better. But oh man, it was really rough in the beginning. So right at this moment, I continue to see most of my clients through telehealth. Most of the therapists in the clinic do. I don't think anybody's changing that next week. I mean, for our clinic, we're going to continue to see clients through telehealth probably for a while until we really see that there's some significant improvement where it's safe to have all the clients back in person in the clinic. We are considered an essential career here, so we could be completely open with all the clients coming in, but I just did not feel like that was safe, and most of the clients didn't feel like that was safe. So we made that switch to telehealth uh, pretty much in the whole clinic. And it's been going okay. I'm sure many of you are doing this. So you know that, there are good days and bad days. There's good client experiences and bad client experiences, right? And we just kind of have to go with it and make it work right now. It's one of those things that I think most therapists who especially work with children will switch back to being in person with their kids as soon as that's possible. Um, but I always say right now when I'm on a webinar, you've gained this experience. If you never had it before, you've gained this experience, and now keep it in your options as a modality that you can offer your clients. It's probably not going to be the majority of what you do, but there'll be a client that will come along who can't do in person in your clinic. And now you can offer to them this option of a telehealth session and feel comfortable with it. And that's a really nice service to offer. It's very true with a lot of the folks that I work with. My past clients who were telehealth prior to COVID-19 were individuals with certain disorders or disabilities. They couldn't get into the clinic. They couldn't leave their home for various reasons. And so it was essential that they be able to do their therapy through a telehealth process. And, you'll probably run into that as well. And then you've got this option for them. I know this isn't a telehealth talk, but just thought I would throw that in there. That's okay, Jackie.
Thanks, Robert. Given that many people are working with children or young people, and some of these may well have sensory processing or, in fact, ASD issues, is there anything that's peculiar about the telehealth platform that would be an advantage even in working with some of these presentations?
Sometimes it decreases anxiety. Sometimes with these kids being in person with us, being out in public, in the office, does increase their anxiety levels quite a bit, may increase even their dysregulation. So then that may affect how much they work with you or cooperate or communicate with you. And I have noticed that some of these kids seem much more relaxed at home and through the screen. And so they actually participate with me better or more fully. And I think that is probably because that anxiety level is less. And so that's a nice benefit. I think a lot of our kids a lot of our kids in general are comfortable with screens, right? For better or worse. And so they find, I think, sometimes the process kind of intriguing and engaging. But our kids with autism specifically, and we know that comes a lot with sensory processing challenges, but that diagnosis, interestingly, we have research to support that individuals with autism are more drawn to technology than neurotypical individuals. And so with that particular diagnosis and population, you might find that they like this screen process even better, that in there physically with you, maybe just makes them a little bit more uncomfortable. They can kind of be on the screen and not really look at you, which makes them a little bit more comfortable. So I think it's really a comfort level issue. But the truth is there are some clients who don't do well with it. And I have a few of those right now that it would just be better for them to be in person. And then I've discovered a couple through this that I probably will keep on telehealth because they're doing better than they were in person. For me, if this was done correctly, like how I would do this prior to COVID-19, I have like an assessment that we go through if somebody wants telebehavioral health services. And I call it a readiness assessment to make sure that telebehavioral health is really the best fit for them. And ideally, I would have done that with all these clients, but we were in crisis, right? And when you're in crisis, you sometimes just don't do your normal procedures because you just have to kind of make things work. But that's what I'll go back to doing again after this is over. If somebody's interested in telebehavioral health or they're asking about it, we will have a consultation. We'll do the readiness assessment. We'll kind of make sure that it really seems like it would be a better fit than being in person. So I know you want me to talk about sensory challenges, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I probably should jump into that. And make sure you chat your questions because, I mean, obviously we can't go into great detail about sensory processing disorder in our limited time frame here. So our time will probably be better used with me answering some of your specific questions than rattling on about some definition of proprioceptive. So I want to make sure you get the most out of this time. Um, Sensory processing challenges can exist in a wide variety and form. They often do accompany certain diagnosis like autism, but it can be a standalone diagnosis where a child just has sensory processing disorder and no other mental condition or diagnosis. I think it's becoming more common to see sensory challenges, probably because we are understanding them better and what they look like, and we are understanding how to diagnose for sensory challenges better. Um, Working with these issues is really important, even if it's not your primary focus. Let's say you were working with a child who had autism, but then they also had sensory challenges. So your primary focus might be the autism, but oftentimes if you don't address the sensory challenges, it affects your ability to work on anything else. So for example, the child comes into your office, and if there are sensory triggers in there, if they are very sensitive to some of the input that's coming from your office through lighting, through smells, through sounds, then it's going to be very hard for them to even really be present with you in the session to work on whatever your goal might have been because of these sensory irritants. So just making sure that you understand if the child has sensory challenges, and then you take a look around your space and make sure that it's sensory friendly, right? So whatever their challenges are, try to accommodate for them when they come in to see you. Obviously, you don't have to worry about that so much if you're doing a telehealth session, but it's something you'd have to communicate to parents. Working with kids with sensory issues or any issue right now through telebehavioral health, for me, means working a lot with the parents and the child together. I bring the parent in a lot, and we'll do interventions together. So I'm teaching the parent and the child. I'm participating if I can through the screen, and I'm observing and I'm giving feedback. So it's pretty structured from a play therapy perspective. And I try to make sure that I'm keeping it fairly simple for the parents, especially right now, because they may have a lot on their plate. They may have a lot of stressors going on. Um, I'm getting up and I'm seeing clients all day long in my normal schedule. I didn't lose any clients through this. So I'm working my normal schedule, even if it's from home. But my son is home. School's canceled for the rest of the year. My wife is a school teacher, so she's home with him, but she's going into school is canceled for the rest of the year, but they're doing it all online. So he's expected to do work throughout the day. She's expected to be teaching her class. And I think about, what if they were my client? She's supposed to be doing her job from home. He's supposed to be doing school from home. And I don't want to throw a bunch of things on their lap in the middle of what's probably already stressful. That would make it more stressful. So I think if you're going to work on these sensory issues, keep it pretty light and keep it pretty simple. Right now, maintaining that connection is probably the most important thing that you're going to be doing. And then you can try to get them to do some sensory activities with you. I would keep it simple, things like maybe some midline body crossing move game, or maybe having the parent doing some massage work with the child, or doing even simple things like some exercises, like some jumping jacks or something. Turn it into like a Simon Says game. But nothing too, hardcore difficult, because that's probably not going to go well. And they're really going to be less likely to work on any of that outside of your session with them through the rest of the week if it's too challenging or too difficult. Some of the kids that I've worked with have been pretty forthcoming in expressing that they're not really wanting to do anything right now. And so I think the parent trying to get them to participate in some sensory exercises outside of their time with you might be challenging, might just turn into an argument. So just take that into consideration. I think that's really important for what's happening specifically right now. So I've got a good resource for this. And if you were in the webinar I did before I came over or after, I don't remember, Jackie. See, this whole thing has affected my sense of time. I don't know when I did anything, but whenever that webinar was, I think I gave this website, but I put it in your chat. It's Sensory Smarts. It's .com, not .org. Sorry about that. SensorySmarts.com. Let me try it again because I got to make sure I do it right. SensorySmarts.com is the website of a pediatric occupational therapist named Lindsay Beal. It's got a lot of nice resources on it that are reproducible that you can go there and use. But one of them is a sensory diet. And it's a great list. Lots of activities on this sensory diet. Simple things that can be done at home very easily for a parent to understand it and implement it. And these are things you could pull from and be having the parent and child do during your sessions. And she breaks down the document by sensory area. So, auditory, tactile, movement, whatever might need to be worked on, that would be the child's issues. And if you're not sure what the sensory issues are, she also has a nice at-home sensory screening tool on the website here that the parent could get access to and fill out, and then have a better idea of what areas you do need to work on and you do need to cover during this time. So I thought that might actually be very helpful to you in this sort of brief time, is just being able to access that to get some ideas that, and the reason I really like the list is because it's not like really in-depth, challenging OT activities that really you would need more training to do. They're pretty simple things that parents can implement at home, but it will still help their child with these sensory struggles. Okay, so I want to have some time for questions. So I think it would be good if you guys had any questions, we could do questions for a few minutes, and answer some specific things that you might be thinking about.
Thanks, Robert. We've had a question already, and please do type questions into the chat there. Try and keep them as general as possible. We'll identify clients, obviously. But Simone's asked, I'd be interested to undertake a sensory assessment to ensure that my space is sensory friendly.
Oh, okay. I just saw that myself. I was reading through them as well. Um, I'm not really aware of this particular sensory assessment that looks at if your space is sensory friendly. I think what you would want to do is a few things, and I can give you some ideas. One is try to keep smells and odors out of your room. So, really, as much as we neurotypical non-sensory issue people love these things, and we do, we want to kind of get rid of the scented candles, get rid of the air freshener plug-ins. Those tend to be really problematic for kids with sensory issues. Just kind of keep the odors out of your room. If you're going to use an air freshener, get one that's non-scented, right? Like a spray or something. If you have the ability to change the lighting up. If you've got an overhead light, that's great. Add a couple of different lamps, different types of lamps that give different types of lighting. So even the child could come in and tell you, okay, let's turn this off, let's turn this on, that feels good to me. But just having the options, right? If you have only one light, it's your overhead light, then there's no options for changing that. So options for adjusting your lighting in different ways. If you've got a window, for sure have blinds or curtains, so it can be opened or it can be closed, and that will change the lighting as well. Same thing with seating options, whether it's floor or chairs. Make sure that you have different tactile experiences. So you would want a soft chair, you would want a hard chair, you would want like maybe a space on the floor that was more hard, but then a space with like a big cushy rug, a big pillow, like a beanbag chair. Different experiences for seating. Definitely an exercise ball that they could set on instead of a chair or instead of the floor and kind of bounce themselves while they're sitting and maybe talking to you. This is really nice as well. Again, you're providing different opportunities so the child can find what works for them that makes them feel the most comfortable in terms of that sensory input that they might be seeking, or something that's negative that they're trying to avoid. If they run across the negative, like this seat is really uncomfortable and it's the only seat you have for me, then that's all that's going to be on their mind. They're not really going to be paying attention to anything else that you're trying to get them to do. Same with the lighting, same with the odor. Try to control noise as much as you can. Remember, with auditory sensory issues, it's not just loudness, it's tone, it's pitch, it's things like that. So it's not just it's really loud, it could be a specific tone or pitch. So, you might cut out the relaxing, mindful music. You may have to try to get one of those noise canceling machines that has several different settings, right? Like rain, a creek, a storm, white noise, several different options. So if you have to use one, maybe the child could find one of them that feels okay to them and not irritating. So the assessment, I think, would really be about just being mindful and providing opportunities. And of course, listening to the child. If I know they have sensory issues, I try to get the details in print, but then I also ask the child, is there anything in here that is kind of distracting you or bothering you? And then I just try to modify that or change that for when they come in to the session time with me.
Thanks, Robert. I know on your website a while ago you posted a great teletool checklist for when you come online with a child. You ask a certain number of questions and you check in.
Yeah.
Could you speak a bit to that?
Yeah, that's actually like a legal guide. Um, at least here in the US, I mean, maybe she is worldwide, but Dr. Marlene Mayhew is who I would consider one of the experts in telebehavioral health. She's been doing it for years. She started in the early 90s. She's produced a ton of research. She's a mental health professional, a psychologist. And in one of her trainings I was in once, she talked about um, just the legalities of telebehavioral health and sort of how she starts a session legally. And so I just typed that up, and then when I have it, so I just read through it every time we start, not once with a new client, but every telehealth session. And now I don't have it in front of me. I'm going to forget some of the steps. Thanks, Jackie. But let me see if I can try to remember. It goes something like this. It's a greeting, and then I tell the client where I'm at. I'm at home, or I'm in my playroom, or I'm in my office, and there's no one else here with me. Those are the two important things legally for us to say here in the US. This is where I'm at. There's no one else here with me. And then I ask them the same. Where are you at? Tell me where you're at. And is there anyone else in there with you? Then I ask them, is there anyone that can see or hear your session? And they'll say no, or they'll say yes. If they say yes, then I have to say, are you okay with them hearing or seeing your session? It's that confidentiality guideline that we follow. So they'll either say yes, usually yes. If they say no, then we have to figure out what we need to do differently. But it's important that they know that on your end is confidential, and it's important that on their end where they're at and if there's anyone listening in or seeing this, right? That's really important. So then if I don't know their location, if it's a new location to me, I need that address. Because if there's a crisis during our session, I need to be able to call the police and tell them where to go. So if it's not a place I already have on file, then I need that address. And so I'll get that in our little check-in time here. And then the last thing is I say, I'm not recording this. Are you recording it? And they'll say yes or no, because we also need to know if somebody's recording legally, right? And that's pretty much it. Then I say, we're ready to go. But I open every telebehavioral health session with that same script. And that's good to do. I would encourage everybody to do that, even if it's not specifically in your guidelines. It's just good to do anyway.
Thanks, Robert. That's great to cover.
Sure.
If you were working with a young child and you'd done the screening for telehealth and you deemed that it was going to be something useful, you had the parent in the room and they were going to be your supporter in this sort of work, are there any practical engagement strategies that you think could be particularly useful to start maybe with younger children with sensory processing issues? That might be some sort of game or activity that could be engaging, but also be the start of some sort of therapeutic work for those children.
Sure. I think the starting point really, and if this is not something that you had really established with your parents, then you could even take a session time and just meet with the parents and establish this. But that is to make sure the parents know how to be playful and engage through play. You know, this is a time that you don't want to feel like a school homework assignment, or like now you better do this or you're not getting your iPad later. You know, we don't want this to be negative or lectury. We want the parent to come at the child during this time very playful, excited, using their playful instincts and engaging the child through play. And that would be the first thing. That's probably even somewhat more important than the specific activity that's going to follow, is that the parent is really in this playful attitude and tries to keep the whole thing playful as they go. And if you've got a parent and you're not sure they know how to do that, or if you think for sure they don't know how to do that, then maybe taking a telehealth session and just trying to teach the parents about how important that is, role model for them a little bit, take them through some demonstrations about how to be playful with their child, you know, during this time especially, right? Let's not be real discipline oriented or authoritarian. Let's just try to really think about this as a fun playtime. And then we're going to get the benefits out of, you know, the activities that we do to help work on the sensory issues. So for me, it could be anything. I mean, I think of age appropriate. I think of developmentally appropriate, right? And then I think of maybe what they might like to do, because we have so many things we could do to address sensory issues. It's okay just to choose things that the family likes. And, or if they have an idea, I always encourage them to throw that out to me. And of course, if it's something that I know will work or is a good option, then we'll go with that as too. But you know, I always like midline crossing moves. That's just a big go-to for me for sensory issues. So that could be playing the mirroring game. You know, we could all do that on the screen right now. You could all just be mirroring everything that I'm doing, right? But then I'm just going to add midline crossing to it. So I'm going to do a lot of crossing the midline with my moves. And we know that that's just crossing your right and left brain, activating the whole brain. You can do this in so many ways. And so I would probably get the parent and child to play that with each other. You know, I might play it with them first. You guys watch me, mirror me. Now I want you to take turns and one of you be the mirror and one of you lead. And then they can switch roles. That's kind of a fun game. That would be great for sensory challenges. And then, and again, just laughing, having fun with it. It's okay to do a silly move in there, right? And just enjoy it in sort of a playful way.
Fantastic. They're all wonderful suggestions. Robert's just with us for a little bit longer, so if you did have any questions, this is your big chance. Feel free to pop them in the chat box. There's one from Kerry. Robert, would you prefer I read them or would you like to?
I can read is okay. They're popping up here for me, so no problem. Okay, is the addressing of sensory issues the only way that alt play differs from child-centered play therapy? No, there's probably, if you're a child-centered play therapist, you probably think there are a lot of differences. Because child-centered is, you know, pretty true to their non-directive philosophy. And in alt play, we are directive. Most of alt play is a structured process. So we would be introducing a play therapy intervention to address a social skill deficit, to address emotional regulation struggles, to address connection and engagement skills. We're always working with the parent in alt play therapy from session 1 to termination. It's a family play therapy approach. And even when we're working with younger kids with a more severe impairment, where we start with what we call the follow me approach, which has a lot of non-directive elements in it, we still do a couple of directive things in there. So there are some distinct differences, and most of the difference has to do with being more directive for skill gain. In alt play, where we're focusing on kids with autism, we're really looking at sort of this marriage of the relationship is what's going to help this therapy work. The relationship we form with the child and with the parent, and that comes very much from non-directive play philosophy, but that is very much intermixed and married to behavioral therapy, where we are needing to make skill gains with this child. So that's, the big integration of the approach. So if you went through it and you were familiar with child-centered play therapy, you would see where those underpinnings manifest in alt play, but that wouldn't be the end of what you would experience. Let's see here. Most of the activities in your book are for high functioning. What instructions can we give to low functioning ASD? Do we need to use picture cards and give instructions? Yeah, the interventions in alt play are always for kids who are capable of doing interventions. So that would probably be if we were doing these terms, it would be your moderate to high functioning kids, because obviously we would need a level of cooperation. In alt play and in the book, where you really want to focus in on for kids who are more severely impaired is that follow me approach. That's what we do with kids who are more severely impaired. And a lot of that follow me approach is non-directive processes with the kids, with a couple of other things added in there. And what we're trying to do is help that child get to a place where they can engage with you so they can participate in a structured intervention with you. Because when they first come in and they're at a certain impairment level, they're just not capable of participating in a structured intervention with you. And so we implement the follow me approach to try to help them gain those skills, those engagement, those connection skills, so then they can participate in a more structured intervention with you. But in that way, but you can integrate whatever you want in there. You could integrate visual schedules, you could integrate picture cards like PECs, anything that you thought might help move the child forward in this skill development, you could, integrate into your therapy time with them if you were familiar with that, whatever you were integrating in there. Someone asked if I can make the video for a low functioning. Yeah, I mean, I really need to. I have an issue now with my videos that has been true for several years now, and that is I don't use real clients anymore. You will see on the YouTube page, older videos are actually real clients in a real session. And then I just got all the permissions to record it and post it, which is illegal. It's still legal to do that. But several years ago, I just decided within my own ethical code that's in here that I just didn't want to put clients out there on YouTube anymore, even if I got them to sign the releases. And, it's really hard to duplicate a low functioning child with autism with a model. I almost really need a real child to show it. And so I don't have a lot of those examples. There are a couple. I do have some of those examples that we show in the alt play training, but again, they're real clients that I actually videoed many years ago. My poor son does a lot of the videos with me now, and my niece. And try as they might, they're just not going to be great at representing a more severely impaired child with autism. But I'm working on it. I'm toying with the idea of trying to find someone that I don't know that has a child that they might want to let do this. I'm still not sure how I feel about that. They wouldn't be my client, so I don't know. But I'm trying to figure that out, because your question is a really good one, because honestly, those are probably some of the better videos to watch, is with the kids who are more severely impaired than with the kids who are more mildly impaired. So I'm working on it. You got any ideas? Send them to me. You know
Thanks,
anybody
Robert.
in Missouri who would participate with me? Send them my way.
We'll certainly work on that, Robert. That's fantastic. We've got an opportunity for just one or two more questions. So if you did have anything you did want to ask Dr. Grant, this is your opportunity, or to let him know what you valued about today. That would be really great too, just before we finish up this session. So please feel free to acknowledge his time and generosity today. And I'm sure he's going to tell us a little bit about how you can access further specific training with him if you're interested in doing that. I know he's got books that you can purchase, obviously YouTube videos you can see, but he's also got some online training that maybe you want to speak a bit to, Robert.
Sure, and probably the best way to access any of that is just on the Alt Play Therapy website. You can look at the in-person trainings and the online trainings. We are doing some webinars this summer. One of them is movement interventions in the playroom, and I think that's in June. But you can see all of that and register for anything on the Alt Play website, and I type that in for you, including the online home study Alt Play certification training. We try to post a lot of resources that we come along, like the one that Jackie mentioned about the telebehavioral health, on either the Alt Play Facebook page or the Alt Play group. The group, I don't know if you guys do Facebook in Australia. You do, right, Jackie? Yes. I get confused. Some places do and some don't. But now I'm remembering that we're friends, so you probably do. But the Alt Play Therapy group is a good place because lots of other people share resources. It's not just me. And there are some people in the group from Australia, maybe some of you in here. So that would be a good resource for just knowing when all kinds of trainings are coming up, or just resources that people share about sensory issues, about autism, etc. So that would be the two places I would suggest to go to for more information. Okay, we got another question though, right?
One there from Sarah. Do you find yourself using storybooks more with kids?
Do you mean, Sarah, like reading a book or going through a book together? Like sort of like bibliotherapy? Okay, I saw you shaking your head. Strangely, I haven't even been doing that so far. I could. And, you know, you could even go through a book you could even share your screen and go through one on YouTube. Many of the kids' books that I use have been turned into YouTube video where someone's reading the pages. And so you could even share your screen and do it through your telebehavioral health session that way. And it would be a great appropriate intervention, especially if the child responded to it. I just haven't been doing that so much. There have been, I was kind of already familiar with ways to kind of engage with kids and support their goals prior to COVID-19, because I had done some telebehavioral health with kids. But then when that hit, I mean, if you've been on Facebook or any social media site, I mean, just the flood of here's an intervention that you can do. I mean, just flooded the social media sites, especially that teleplay therapy Facebook group. Oh my gosh. And actually, there's been some good ideas on there that I grabbed and have tried with some of my kids, and they love them and they work well. So I haven't even gotten around to the idea of a story, but you certainly could.
All right. There's some great appreciations coming through there for you,
Yeah.
Robert. And I'd like to echo and all of those and say thank you so much for being with us today. It's really generous of you to give up your Sunday evening to come to us from Missouri and to share your wisdom and thoughts and kind wishes and practical strategies to help us help the children and young people we work with. So it's fantastic. And
Great.
I'll put up Robert's details on the website so you can contact him directly. Robert may be staying with us, but may be disappearing. So we'll say our farewells to him now.
Yes.
And thank you very much, Robert, for you. It's really, really great to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the invite, Jackie. Everybody take care, be safe, enjoy your
Thanks,
kids and clients. We'll see you sometime later. Thank you all.
Will do. Thank you, Robert. That's great. What we'd like to do now is give you a chance to reflect on something of what Robert has been sharing with us. So we're going to put you in groups, so about two or three people, just for 5 minutes, to have a conversation about what you value and what practically you might be able to apply in the settings you work with the clients you work with, about what he's just shared. Some people have said mirroring techniques that we could do, or play training in Australia, looking at room and asking children about what they like and don't like about it. Lots of practical things that are coming through there. Fantastic. Great. Thank you for sharing that. Additionally, what I'd like to offer you today is an opportunity to think about wellbeing in a slightly different way. So, reminding of odours and smells, lots of practical things that we do have to think about for all clients, really, not just those with sensory processing issues. Some really practical things. We've just had an opportunity to connect in, but what I would like to share with you is something that's come out of one of my favourite ever retreat centres. And this retreat centre is on the west coast of the US, just north of San Francisco, and it's called Esalen. And Esalen runs retreats all through the year. They're closed obviously at the moment, but I'm sure they'll be open. And when they are, make sure you get there at some stage. It is a really amazing place with incredible programs. They teamed up in 2015 with a small group of other nonprofits to co-create something called the Wellbeing Project, which was a global initiative to shift social change-filled culture from one of frequent burnout, which you might have experienced, or you might know of others in the organisations that you've worked in who've experienced burnout, to applying inner wellbeing. And it's more important now than ever to be thinking about some of these issues. One of the things that this Wellbeing Project did was study over 300 people who are working in the helping sector, much like yourselves, in 55 countries, and found that while 75% of respondents felt that looking after their wellbeing was important, in fact, very important, 25% reported that they looked after their wellbeing to a great extent. So even though we regard it as important, we often don't do enough about it. And what stands out from the project lead, Aaron Pereira, was the perception in the field of social change in whatever areas we might be working in, that it may well be oriented towards self-sacrifice and even martyrdom at some times, then self-care and engaging in one's inner journey is often seen as a luxury. The report that they produced puts front and centre how important self-care is for all of us, and how that profoundly changes everything when we do privilege it, including the work that we do. one of the outcomes from this, from the program of directors at Esalen, is that people on the front lines of COVID-19 are often our change makers, the people who are really doing incredibly important work, not just now, but in the future, working with some of the most vulnerable populations. And today, more than ever, the consciousness of wellbeing is required of all of us in order to maintain the stamina and compassion necessary to serve those in need and to retain our humanity in the process of doing that. And this wellbeing and report that was published, and I'll give you the link to that in a moment, confirms that taking care of ourselves in all the ways that are important directly impacts the quality of our contributions and the ability to go that extra mile when we need to. And certainly we're feeling this at the moment. One of the quotes that have come out of this report is that well-being inspires well-doing. And that's a link to that if you wanted to follow that up. What I'd like to get us to think about is two things just now. And I'm going to put you back into those groups for again another couple of minutes to reflect on these two questions. How in the work that you do, either in your immediate sphere, so with your family, those around you directly, and those in the bigger picture of the work that you do with your clients, with your colleagues, in the agencies or organisations or practices that you might work in, how do you manage that occasional lure of martyrdom? And what self-care activity have you been most proud of doing this week? It might have been one that you've continued for a while. It might be something new that you've started. Just to share with you briefly, I can also succumb, like many of us, to the lure of martyrdom. If I don't do this, nobody will. It's really important that I go that extra mile, that I work a few extra hours really late at night when I'm perhaps too tired to really be doing it productively. And I think one of the things that helps me manage that lure is knowing that I can't be ever everything for everyone, and that there's so many other people doing a great job that are also really kind of picking up a lot of the support that's needed. So recognizing my small part in the bigger picture helps manage martyrdom at times. And one self-care activity I've been proud of being able to continue this week is my online Zoom yoga. So I'm really lucky to have that opportunity. So that's something for me. I'm going to get Aidan to put you back into your groups. Consciously turning off the computer. That's a great thing to do, Annette. Well done. Yes. Meditation and art and colour. Lovely. So these are a combination of self-care strategies and also managing martyrdom. A great one from Kim there. The mantra, I am enough. What I do is enough. Lovely. Good to remember. Walking in the sun, walks. Great sharing there. Thank you. Thank you everyone for those. Reminding myself that my own needs are worthy indeed. We're very excited to have the very well-known Liana Lowenstein, who's a Canadian social worker and play therapist supervisor. And she's done lots of training in Australia. She's published lots and lots of books on creative therapies, and she'll be with us for half an hour next Wednesday, Australian time, and Tuesday evening, afternoon, North American time. So hopefully you can join us for Liana, and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for being here with us today and supporting our Holding Space free series. Anything you've missed, the recordings will be available on our website with the additional resources. So please feel free to take advantage of those. Tell your friends and colleagues and friends if they'd like to join us. And we'd like to, if you want to just unmute yourself and we can all say goodbye. Actually, why don't we all give Aidan a big wave? He's going to take a screenshot for to capture all your lovely faces. So a lovely big smile and wave, and we can let people know about this. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Jackie and Aidan.
Bye.
Bye.
I appreciate it.